All right, today we're going to play medical detective. We're looking at a classic clinical sign, one that can reveal secrets hidden deep within the lungs, using nothing more than a doctor's own hands and ears. Pretty amazing, right?
So this is the big question, isn't it? How can something that sounds so simple, just tapping on someone's chest, actually solve a complex diagnostic puzzle? We're going to explore how this old school technique basically acts like a form of biological sonar, giving us these incredible clues about what's happening deep inside a patient's body. So to make this really hit home, let's imagine a patient. Picture this. A 35-year-old man walks into the clinic. He's got a cough that just will not quit. He's been losing weight, and this is the scary part, he started coughing up blood. I mean, the whole picture is obviously very concerning, but it's during the physical exam that we find our first massive clue.
And that clue, that really puzzling finding, is something called Wintrich sign. This is the very tool we're going to use to start cracking this case wide open. So what on earth is it? Well, to put it simply, it's a specific change in the sound a doctor hears when they tap or percuss over a patient's chest. Now, the key word here, the most important word, is change. The sound is completely different depending on whether the patient's mouth is open or closed. Okay, so how does a doctor actually find this sign? How do you hear it? Let's walk through the exact steps.
First, the clinician finds the likely spot, which is often over the upper parts of the lungs. Then they ask the patient to close their mouth, and they tap, listening really carefully. Next, they have the patient open their mouth wide, and they tap the exact same spot with the exact same force. It's in that comparison, that before and after, that the sign just reveals itself.
And this really shows you the difference perfectly. With the mouth closed, the sound is kind of dull and low-pitched. Think of it like tapping on a closed-off chamber. But when the mouth opens, the sound just pops. It becomes clearer, higher-pitched, much more resonant. It's this very distinct, sharp change that doctors learn to recognize. Now, this is where things get really, really interesting. Why? Why does simply opening your mouth cause such a dramatic change in sound? It's not magic, it's physics. So what's the actual scientific principle behind all this? What is physically changing between the mouth being open and the mouth being closed?
The answer is one word: resonance. The entire sign is a real-world demonstration of how resonance works, and it actually turns the patient's airway into a temporary acoustic chamber.
Let's break down the physics. When the mouth is closed, the column of air that's being vibrated is short. It's pretty much just limited to the cavity in the lung. That gives you a duller, lower-pitched sound. But the moment the mouth opens, you connect that cavity to the bronchus, to the trachea, and all the way out through the mouth, creating one single long tube of air. And that longer column amplifies the sound and raises its pitch.
This analogy just makes it all click into place, doesn't it? It's exactly like a wind instrument. A short pipe on an organ produces a low sound, while a long pipe produces a clear, high sound. By having the patient open their mouth, the doctor is effectively making the pipe longer, and that's the higher, clear note they hear. So we know how to find the sign, and we know why it happens. Now for the most important part, what does it tell us about our patient? Let's see how this one sign helps us build our diagnosis. A positive Wintrich sign is incredibly specific. It confirms three things at once. First, there has to be a hollow cavity in the lung. Second, that cavity has to be filled with air, not fluid. And third, and this is critical, that cavity must be connected to the airways. If any one of those conditions isn't met, the sign will be absent.
And this table lays it out perfectly. If a cavity is full of fluid, it won't resonate, sign's absent. If a cavity has really thick walls, it won't vibrate properly, sign's absent. And if the cavity is completely walled off and has no connection to an airway, you can't create that long air column, so again, the sign is absent. It's an incredibly specific finding.
And this leads us directly to the most likely diagnoses. The most common cause, both historically and still today, is a cavity from pulmonary tuberculosis. But you can also see it in a lung abscess after it's drained, or even in certain types of lung cancer that form cavities. So for our patient, tuberculosis is now very high on our list. Now, for any of you studying medicine, it's super important not to confuse Wintrich sign with other lung sounds. Amporic sounds, for example, are heard with a stethoscope, not by tapping, and the cracked pot sound is caused by a completely different mechanism. Wintrich sign is unique because of that reliance on percussion and the open mouth resonance change. So a fair question you might be asking right now is,
Okay, we have CT scans and X-rays. Does a 19th century physical sign really have a place in modern medicine? And the answer is a resounding yes.
Here's exactly why it still matters. It allows for a rapid diagnosis right there at the bedside without waiting for imaging. That's invaluable, especially in resource-limited settings. And crucially, it doesn't just tell you a cavity's there, it tells you that it's open and communicating with an airway. This can indicate that an infection is active and potentially contagious, a key piece of clinical information you get instantly.
So if you take away just one thing, let it be this. Wintrich's sign is simply the audible proof. It's the sound of a connection between the outside world and a hollow space deep inside the lung. It truly is an echo from a hidden chamber. And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. In an era of ever more powerful and amazing imaging technology, what is the role and what is the future of the simple, hands-on physical exam? It's a question every single healthcare provider thinks about, and signs just like this one prove that the old ways, well, they still have some profound wisdom to offer.